The prisoner in the Void Icarus base, orbiting the unknown moon. 2245. The silence of space was unnerving. Inside Icarus base, the hum of the life support systems echoed eerily, a constant reminder of their isolation. The mission had started with ambition, studying extraterrestrial life, but everything changed when they captured Xylar. Xylar, the alien, imprisoned for months in a high-tech containment cell. Its abilities were beyond anything they had imagined. Its presence alone bent reality. Dr. Rachel Hayes stood in front of the containment unit, her unease growing with each passing day. The alien had done nothing but watch, but its glowing eyes seemed to see through her, to understand her thoughts. Something was wrong. The station felt off. The air was colder. The walls almost pulsed with a strange energy. She turned to check. Xylar, and it was gone. Impossible. Her heart raced as panic set in. The creature couldn't have escaped. Its containment was flawless. But there was no sign of it. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. Metal scraped against metal. Something moved in the hallways. Dr. Hayes rushed down the dark corridors, hoping to reach the security hub. But the further she went, the more disoriented she became. The walls seemed to close in, the air grew thicker, colder. She felt as if she were being watched. And then, ahead of her, Xylar, standing motionless, its eyes locked onto hers. She froze. Something about the alien was different, more aware. The very atmosphere seemed to distort around it, bending and twisting like a living thing. Xylar's glowing eyes flared brighter, and the world around her seemed to warp. A cold dread washed over her. She wasn't just being hunted. She was already trapped. The lights flickered one last time, and then everything went dark. The emergency alarms cut off. The hum of the station fell silent. There was nothing left. Glitches in the system as the days went on. Strange things began happening around Icarus base. At first, it was easy to dismiss them as technical glitches, small anomalies in the station's systems. A door would open on its own, a power surge would cut off the lights momentarily, or the oxygen supply would fluctuate inexplicably. But then the problems became more frequent and more violent. Equipment malfunctioned in ways that couldn't be explained. Xylar remained silent in its containment, but its eyes glowed brighter each time something went wrong. One night, Dr. Hayes received an encrypted message. The source was unknown, but the message was chilling. Xylar is not just an alien. It is a weapon. If you continue to provoke it, you will awaken something far worse than you can imagine. The warning didn't faze Dr. Hayes. She believed it to be a hoax, a distraction meant to scare her into stopping her research. But deep down, a part of her felt uneasy. She had been pushing the boundaries of science for far too long, and now it seemed like something was pushing back. The power fails. The situation on Icarus base grew more dire with each passing day. The power began to fail more frequently, and entire sections of the station were shutting down without warning. Communications with Earth were lost, and the AI systems, which controlled the station's defense mechanisms, went completely offline. One night, a massive power surge caused the entire station to plunge into darkness. The emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the dark hallways. Panic began to set in as the crew scrambled to restore power, but the systems wouldn't respond. In the control room, Dr. Hayes and her team worked furiously to regain control, but the damage was done. The containment cells, which were supposed to be impenetrable, suddenly unlocked. Xylar was free. At first, it was hard to believe. The alien had been secured for so long. How could it have escaped? But when the station's automated security systems failed to activate, the truth became clear. Xylar had somehow taken control. The hunt begins as the crew attempted to regain control of the station. It became apparent that they were no longer in charge. One by one, crew members began to disappear. It was subtle at first, an officer missing from his post, another vanishing from the dining hall. But soon the pattern became undeniable. Xylar was hunting them. It didn't act like a typical predator. It didn't charge. It didn't roar. It simply watched. Its glowing eyes followed the crew's every move, And then, when the moment was right, it struck. Dr. Hayes tried to remain calm, sending out distress signals and attempting to contact other research stations. But the station systems were corrupted. She couldn't even send a message back to Earth. The crew was completely isolated, and with the power failing, their escape pods rendered useless, there was no way out. The alien was always one step ahead. It used the station's malfunctioning systems to trap them, closing doors, cutting off corridors, and leaving them with nowhere to run. The truth unveiled. As the crew dwindled, Dr. Hayes found herself alone with only a few survivors. They had barricaded themselves in the command center, hoping the alien wouldn't find them. But it wasn't long before they realized that Xylar wasn't simply hunting them, it was toying with them. The crew had underestimated the alien. It was not just a being from another world. It was a weapon, far older and more powerful than anything they could comprehend. And now, it was using its power to unravel the very fabric of the station. Xylar had the ability to manipulate the station's systems, creating terrifying distortions in space and time. The laws of physics no longer applied. Time itself began to bend, stretching and compressing as the crew experienced moments of déjà vu, or worse, moments that felt like they were happening over and over again. Dr. Hayes discovered, too late, that Xylar was more than just a biological specimen. It was a sentient being capable of bending reality. Its species had mastered the ability to alter time and space, making them godlike in power. Xylar wasn't just trying to escape, it was preparing for something much worse. A final choice as the last survivors of Icarus Base huddled in the command center. Dr. Hayes realized the full scope of their mistake. Xylar wasn't just a prisoner, it was a harbinger. Its people had designed it to be released when the time was right, and now that time had come. The alien was not only capable of manipulating the station, it was capable of reshaping the entire universe. With its powers, Xylar could alter the laws of reality itself, creating a new order. But that meant humanity would cease to exist in the way they knew it. Dr. Hayes was faced with an impossible choice: destroy the station, killing herself and the remaining survivors to stop Xylar from escaping, or allow the alien to complete its mission and risk the annihilation of everything humanity had ever known. The countdown to the station's self-destruct began. The alien was closing in. Dr. Hayes made her decision, but before she could act, Xylar appeared before her. Its eyes burned with an intelligence beyond human understanding. It spoke, though no words were necessary. "You have freed me, and now I will reshape this universe, just as you have reshaped your fate." The end of Icarus Base. The final moments aboard Icarus Base were a blur. As Dr. Hayes initiated the self-destruct sequence, the alien responded by causing the entire station to shift and distort, the fabric of reality unraveling. Time no longer had meaning. The destruction was imminent, but the true consequences of Xylar's power were becoming clear. The crew had never stood a chance. As the explosion tore through the station, the very stars outside seemed to bend and twist. Icarus Base, the last hope for humanity's contact with the unknown, was gone. But Xylar, the alien weapon, was not. And somewhere, in the dark expanse of space, its mission had only just begun. The final awakening, the Icarus Base, 12 hours before destruction, deep in the heart of space. The station was dying. The corridors, once bustling with the activity of scientists and engineers, were now eerily silent. Sparks flew from exposed wires, and the air was thick with the scent of burnt ozone. The flickering emergency lights cast long, sinister shadows, and every step felt like it echoed into an eternal void. Dr. Hayes stood in the command center, staring at the blinking countdown to Icarus Base's self-destruction. It was a desperate move, one that would obliterate the alien and anyone else still trapped inside. But she couldn't help the nagging doubt in her mind. Was this the right choice? Or had she just sealed the fate of the human race, along with herself? Around her, the few remaining survivors, shaken and on the brink of insanity, huddled together in fear. They knew what was coming. Xylar had proven time and time again that it was not just an alien, but something much more, something far worse. And now the alien was coming for them. In the heart of the station, hidden deep within its walls, Xylar's presence had grown stronger. It wasn't just manipulating the station's systems anymore, it was altering the very essence of the environment. The walls were bending, the air was thick with static, and reality itself seemed to be breaking apart. Dr. Hayes realized the truth of what she had discovered too late. Xylar wasn't just a creature, it was the manifestation of an ancient cosmic power, a force that could reshape the universe as it saw fit. The alien's true abilities were now fully revealed, and Dr. Hayes was beginning to understand just how far they had fallen into its trap. They hadn't imprisoned Xylar. They had freed it, and in doing so, unleashed something far beyond their understanding. The countdown was the only thing standing between them and total annihilation, but Xylar would not let them escape that easily. The reckoning as the minutes ticked away on the countdown timer, Dr. Hayes turned to face the survivors. Their faces were drawn and pale, their eyes filled with terror. They had seen too much, and their minds were on the edge of breaking. But Dr. Hayes, despite the fear gnawing at her own soul, had made a decision. "We end this now," she said, her voice steady, though it carried the weight of 1,000 decisions that had led them to this point. "We can't wait any longer." Her fingers hovered over the control panel. The self-destruct sequence was already initiated, but the station's systems were still under Xylar's control. The alien had infected everything. The AI, the station's security systems, and even the life support. They could no longer trust anything they saw or heard. Everything was a potential illusion, a trick designed to keep them within the station's crumbling walls. The survivors exchanged glances, but none spoke. They knew that even if they did nothing, the alien would come for them. The end was inevitable, but there was still a glimmer of hope. If they could just trigger the explosion, they could take Xylar with them, destroying whatever dark power it possessed. But as Dr. Hayes pressed the final key, the lights blinked out once more. The entire station went black, and an ominous, bone-chilling silence swept through the base. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Xylar was close. Through the darkness, they heard a soft sound, a faint whisper, like the rustling of distant stars. Then came the unmistakable screech of metal grinding against metal. The walls of the station seemed to tremble as if the very foundation was alive. Xylar had arrived. The final confrontation. It wasn't until they reached the main reactor core that Dr. Hayes understood the full extent of Xylar's power. The alien had already infiltrated the deepest reaches of the station, altering reality with every step. The countdown was still ticking down, but it felt like time itself was beginning to lose meaning. Xylar stood before them, its glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. It had changed. It was no longer just the strange, silent creature they had captured weeks ago. It was something more, something terrifyingly powerful. The very air seemed to warp around it. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her heart racing in her chest. "We need to end this now," she shouted, her voice a mix of fear and determination. But Xylar didn't respond. It didn't need to. The alien's presence filled the room with an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the very walls themselves were trembling in fear. Without warning, Xylar raised its hand, and the station's system seemed to react in an instant. The walls groaned, the floor shook, and the lights flickered wildly. Then, in a deafening moment of silence, the alien spoke. "You should have never imprisoned me," it said, its voice not one of sound, but of thought. The message reverberated in their minds, each word sending a shockwave through their very being. It wasn't just speaking to them, it was speaking through them, bending their consciousness to its will. Dr. Hayes fought against the alien's influence, her thoughts clouded and confused. She could feel her grip on reality slipping. She struggled to hold on to her resolve. "We have no choice," she whispered. "We have to destroy it." But Xylar's eyes burned brighter, and with a single gesture the reactor core began to spin out of control. The countdown to destruction accelerated, and The temperature within the reactor rose to dangerous levels. The station was going to implode, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The alien was playing its final game, its victory imminent. Xylar had not only survived, it had become the very force that would reshape the universe. And as Dr. Tao, Hayes and the survivors watched in horror, they realized the truth. They were not simply trying to escape. They were part of Xylar's plan. The final sacrifice, with the reactor core primed for detonation and Xylar's control over the station undeniable, Dr. Hayes made her final decision. The self-destruct sequence was their only chance. She had to activate it, even if it meant sacrificing her own life and the lives of those remaining. Do it. She screamed at the survivors, her hands trembling. Activate the self-destruct, now! But as the final seconds ticked away, Dr. Hayes realized the full weight of her actions. She had been too blinded by ambition to see the true threat Xylar posed. The alien wasn't just a prisoner, it was the key to something far worse, something that could unravel the very fabric of reality itself. In those final moments, Dr. Hayes glanced up at Xylar. It stood motionless, watching, its glowing eyes filled with an understanding that transcended the human mind. The alien had won. It had freed itself, and with its release, humanity had sealed its own fate. The countdown hit 0.